I've been using the iPad Air 4 for 3 months now, so let's talk about it. Firstly, let's talk about the build quality of the iPad Air 4. It has USB-C. I'm so glad it's here, because it's so fast for file transfers, because I use this iPad so much for video editing and photo transfers, but it also charges really fast because of USB-C. The speakers are decent, definitely not the best I've heard, but definitely really surprisingly good for an iPad of this size. It feels really good in the hand and it's not too heavy. I don't have an Apple Pencil, but this magnet right here is here for it. The blue color looks quite bland compared to the new iPad Air 5 that was released very recently. It's kind of more of a faded blue, but I quite like how it looks. It has the same body size as the iPad Pro 11-inch, but the screen is slightly smaller. It has Touch ID and the power button. Nothing special, it works quite well. However, I did notice that you kind of have to press the button and let go, but then kind of hold it for a second or two for the iPad to actually unlock itself, which gets a bit of getting used to, but once you're used to it, it just becomes normal. The iPad Air 4 has a 10.9-inch Liquid Retina display, an LED display at 2360 by 1640 pixels, at 264 pixels per inch. It has 500 nits of brightness, but I wish it just went a tiny bit more. It's a fully laminated display, meaning that all of the display components are squashed into one little sheet. So rather than the base iPad, which sometimes feels like you're tapping on a sheet of glass in front of the screen, it actually feels like you're actually just physically touching the screen. 60 Hz. This iPad has 60 Hz. I would have loved a higher refresh rate, but it makes sense that Apple needs something to keep for the iPad Pro. I actually think they should have made something like Air Motion, where it's 90 Hz instead of the 120 Hz. So there's still a bonus to go into the iPad Pro. I don't know, it's just an idea. It's got a wide color P3 color gamut display, and the screen gets really dirty really quickly. On their website it says that it has a fingerprint resistant coating, but I just noticed that everywhere I touch it, no matter how much I clean my hands, it just always seems to make fingerprint marks on the screen. The bezel on this iPad is 0.1 inch bigger than the iPad Pro 11-inch one. I really like how the bezels are just big enough where they aren't accidental touches, but small enough where it isn't too obnoxious. This iPad has the Apple A14 chip with 4GB of RAM, and it's fast. I don't know much about gaming, as I don't really game on my iPad, but I've edited multiple streams of 1080p and 4K in one video editing timeline, and it didn't even stutter. To simply put it, this thing is incredibly fast. I don't know what other section to put this in, so I'll just put it here. I love Chrome, I'm a big fan of it, but on the iPad, I just have to use Safari. It always loads the desktop site, which is really handy for me. It's faster and just works so much better on the iPad. I was really surprised by how much I disliked Chrome and loved Safari on the iPad. The iPad Air 4 has a 7606 mAh battery. I found that the iPad Air 4 has quite a varied battery life. For example, I edited a video on my iPad for at least 5 hours and watched a lot of YouTube, and the iPad lasted around 8 hours. But then on another day, I watched some Disney Plus for around 2 hours, and the battery went from 80% to 20%. I don't know why this is, but I'll say I've still been very impressed with the battery life on the iPad Air 4. The charger that comes in the box is actually a 20-watt charger, and it charges the iPad really quickly. Now, I'm just going to really quickly talk about the cameras, as I think most people will prefer to use the cameras on their phones, as it's more convenient and usually better. The rear camera is a 12 megapixel camera with the ability to shoot up to 4K at 60 frames per second. The front camera is a 7 megapixel camera. The cameras are good, but I don't really use them at all. My biggest gripe with this iPad has to be the storage. For most people, the base 64GB will probably be plenty. However, for someone like me who is using this for a lot of creative work, storage can get pretty tight. I wish that Apple offered 128GB instead of having to jump all the way up to 256GB of storage. So, don't buy this. I'll explain. About 2 months ago, the new M1 iPad Air came out, with the faster M1 chip, faster USB-C port, and just overall a newer iPad. So my recommendation is to get that. But if you need a higher refresh rate screen and want Face ID instead of Touch ID, get the iPad Pro. And if you want the cheapest, most budget-friendly iPad, the base iPad is probably good enough for you. And lastly, if you want a small iPad, go for the iPad mini. That's my recommendation for iPad. If you like this video, be sure to press that like button down below. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to press the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified when new videos drop. And also, leave a comment down below if you have an iPad, and if so, which one do you have? Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.